I have Haley with us here today, and I've gotten to know Haley because we've occasionally sat together and worked through and troubleshot stuff together, and she's quick on the draw. So I know what she does, but Haley, a lot of other people don't know what you do. So tell us what you do at Pleasant Valley, and then just tell us how you showed up here and just a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm on the rotation for the graphics team. So I'm the one running the slides, hopefully well enough for the music team out there.
Oh no, yeah, listen, you shouldn't say hopefully because you're spot on. We've got a whole good team, and you're a part of that team. They are like spot on. So it's all the lyrics, the song lyrics for people that don't know. Like we call it the graphics position, but it includes like lyrics, the sermon notes, that kind of stuff. It's more challenging than most people would realize, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was like you've got to be, aware, and it's not something that you can kind of do mindlessly. I mean, I guess unless you've been doing it for quite a while and getting into the rhythm, but like it's not something that stops me from hearing the message on Sundays. Like you would be amazed at like how God is like speaking through even through the screens and all of the lyrics and the mess ups that I think I have, like there's some times where I'm like, wow, I feel like I'm like sitting out there in the crowd,
That's awesome.
nothing's really changed.
So in other words, what you're saying is that they shouldn't have someone like me that like after about 5 minutes you're like, oh, squirrel, look at the squirrel. Oh, what? Oh, okay. Now I'm back. I'm back.
Yeah, for sure. I also run a little bit of the slides in 20 somethings, the group there at PV that meets on Thursdays, and there's some times where I'm like, well, I can see the lyrics. Like, why are you guys looking at me? I can see them on this screen.
That's
So
awesome.
I have got distracted before.
So awesome. Okay, so and how did you get involved with running the graphics? What was your pathway to get there?
Yeah, so I moved up here last year. So I work at Cerner, and I joined in January of 2019. So I came up here. I had some family members, like obviously kind of driving around the Liberty area.
Mhm.
I saw Pleasant Valley, and so I had some family members, and I asked them, "Hey, have you ever been to that church that's right across from that Quick Trip?" Like they're like, "Oh yeah, we go all the time. You can come with us." And so I joined, and then I went to the Next Step Center, and they said, "Hey, you should get connected with 20 somethings and find your community there." And so um, kind of after, probably like 8 to 10 months. So I think I started going in February or March, and then in December is kind of when I got this opportunity. After getting more involved with 20 somethings, they made an announcement for the light show during the Christmas season. And so they said, hey, we need just somebody to literally click a button and it runs the track that reads the story and, sets off the music and stuff. Um, and so I ended up being that person that clicked that button, which was, a little bit scary, but
Yeah, you
you
you were out- you were one of the chosen in the frozen container downstairs in the control room, and it actually was a very important job because if that button is not pressed, the show comes to a screeching halt.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There was one time that I think a space bar was accidentally clicked on the light show itself, and I didn't realize how much everything, because that stops the music for the music team too, and like everything is connected. So I'm like, okay, don't touch anything. Just wait
No
for your
space
cue.
bars. Yep, that's awesome. So you went from light show then I now I'm learning this connection. I know exactly how you went from light show to running graphics because all of the production crews like, oh, she knows what she's doing. That's
Hey,
exactly how
she's
it happens.
yeah, sure. If that's how you want to look at it. But yeah, John had said, "Hey, we've got somebody on the graphics team we're wanting to add. So if you don't mind getting in that rotation." And so I shadowed a couple people, and it was still scary because in that shadow, I thought I wasn't going to be doing anything, but I can't remember who I shadowed the first time, but they were like, no, let's get you right in here. I'm just going to sit over your shoulder. And I'm like, I'm clicking buttons and I've never been back here before. But I think it went pretty well.
That's awesome. Well, listen, it worked because you were willing to fail forward if for some reason, if things were going to fall through, someone was there to catch you. But it's awesome that they threw you in right away, and they probably did it because they knew that you were pretty capable of what they saw in the light show.
That's fair. That's fair.
So you said you had some people. Was it your family in the area that had mentioned Pleasant Valley, or just some friends that had mentioned Pleasant Valley when you asked about the church?
Yeah, so I moving up here for the first like 6 months or so, I lived with my great aunt that's up here, and so her son and daughter-in-law, so I guess they're kind of cousins or second cousins. I never know what to call them because I don't want to get all technical. So they're cousins, but they have like high school aged, middle school aged children as well. Um, and so they were the ones who kind of said, hey, you can come sit with us if you want to check it out. And
That's awesome. So you had that personal connection with some people that you knew, which is really helpful when you start out at a church. I feel like it would be intimidating coming to a church and it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. You don't know
mhm,
anyone at all and you're starting from scratch. It's nice to have a connection to begin with.
yeah, yeah.
So were just a little bit more about you. Were you born and raised then where?
Emporia, Kansas is what I usually say. There's a little small town about 15 minutes east of there called Lebo. It's got an exit on I-35, so we're big enough to have an exit, but I don't think we don't have any stoplights or anything. Just stop signs. Um, so yeah.
Okay, so a lot of people don't know this. So my wife is from a very small Kansas town,
Okay.
and we always have to refer to another town close by to it, either Topeka, Kansas, or Holton, Kansas. But it's a really small town called Denison, Kansas,
Okay.
and this tells you how small it is. So the flashing light, traffic light, only works half of the time, and they don't have a post office anymore. So if
Oh
that
no.
like tells you how small of a town it is, I resonate with small Kansas towns. That's awesome that you're a Kansas girl.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. All
So
the
what?
Missouri people love to make that known.
Yeah, I know they do. It's okay. I'm not from Missouri originally, so
Right.
I'm with you on that. So what brought you then to this area? Like, was it specifically work?
Yeah, so my family that I had mentioned before that brought me to church the first time, they live around here. And I actually started off at kind of the North Kansas City campus at Cerner with training and
Okay.
extended training. And so, I mean, it's only about 15 minutes from here. And I had been up here to visit the family members before, so I liked it. I liked that it wasn't downtown because being a small town girl, like I'm fine with, having to live in an apartment with, a lot more people than I'm used to. And it's definitely a change, but like I don't know if I could do downtown. I have some friends that live down there. I visit them and they love it. I don't know. I don't know if I could do it.
It's okay. You've already made a huge leap from small town Kansas to here, so you're doing
Yeah.
great. You don't need to go all metro on us. You're fine.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so are you okay if I move to question number two here? Okay,
Yep.
question number two is there something that you could share with us that most people don't know about you? And I jokingly tell people to keep it legal, and you kind of laughed earlier. So I, but I think you're going to share some with us that might be pretty special here. So what's
Yeah.
something that most people may not know about you?
Yeah. So growing up, I was not in the church at all. And so I didn't have like that hope in times of trouble, like I do now. And so growing up in high school, or actually let me start with middle school. My parents got a divorce like starting middle school. And so that like affected me because I was trying, I've always been a people pleaser. And so I'm like, okay, don't be mad at any one of my parents. Like, I just want everyone to get along. Like, and so like, I don't think that I correctly processed that. Or maybe I did, and it just somehow, literally by the grace of God, now that I've realized, like that didn't affect me like it did some of my friends. And so like even then, like I felt like I was pushed harder towards, like my mom was like, please don't um, fall back or think that this is your fault, or like, go crazy and like look for other things, like you're still good, you're good at school, you have a future, and all of that. And so there is kind of where I started forming, like almost a worldly identity, in that, okay, I've got to be good at school, I've got to impress others with the knowledge that I know, I've got to get a really good job that pays a bunch of money so I can get out of small town Kansas and move to a big city, and then have the biggest mansion there is, and the nicest car and fanciest lawn or whatever. And so in high school, that was, I mean, it was kind of my goal. And so um, I had moved schools in middle school. My mom got a job, and so in another district from Lebo. And so I moved with her, but then for high school, I came back to my hometown. And so that was a little bit of a change, in that there were new kids there in my class, and they thought I was new, but I'm like, no, I grew up here, I've always lived here. Uh, and so like going back in, like I was like, okay, I've got to like fit myself in here, I've got to like impress the people with my grades, I've got to do the best I can. And so like I guess freshman year is kind of when um everything like started in terms of like my faith journey. um so my grandpa passed away from cancer when I was a sophomore in high school. And so, and that was very unexpected, the way that it happened. And so we thought that we had much longer. And then, one day my other grandparents showed up and say, hey, we got a call, and he's no longer with us. And like that was just like shocking. And I remember like telling my mom, like out of fear, like don't go to drugs and don't get depressed and run out. And so like I've always been lucky in that all of my family, like there's a history of divorce and stuff, but like they, regardless of that, like my grandparents have always been not the ones to say, oh, I hate them because I used to be married to them. Like they're very inclusive and caring, and I think that we're just a really close family, compared to what other people um, might have. And I'm an only child, so that might be a thing. But yeah, so my mom and I, kind of after those two big things, like we've always been close, and that there's nothing that I don't share. But um, I
Hi,
guess,
can
yeah,
I ask how old were you when your parents divorced? What age were you?
I was in fifth grade. I'm not sure, like
Yep.
like 10 or
Oh,
11 or
yep.
so.
Old enough to really have it be a major impact in your life. That's
Yeah,
yeah, it's a hard age.
yeah. And I can remember like calling my dad saying, hey, like this was like before he had like moved all of his stuff out officially, and got his own house. And I was like, he would be like, down in another place or on the road or whatever, and I'd be like, can you please come home? And he would tell me no, and it was so hard. And but one thing is, I think, like with my faith journey, like after my grandpa passed away, um high school, I kind of went to some youth groups out of invites from friends every once in a while. Um, but it didn't really start until college when I roomed with one of my friends from high school, and she had grown up in the church. She was like I didn't realize that was Jesus who I was attracted to, that was inside of her. And I was like, like, how is she like, starting freshman year with me? How is she like happy even though all these like things are happening with her changing majors? Like she doesn't really seem like she's bothered by it. I mean, it affects her, and she shares, how she's feeling and stuff, but like she just keeps going. And I'm like, how do you just keep going? And so over, time, she gently nudged me into coming to Christian Challenge with her. And then we found a church called Crosspoint. It was a video campus there in Manhattan for a couple of years. And so we went there. I got baptized. And part of that first testimony was I was wondering where my grandpa went, after he passed away. Like, did he go to heaven? Like, does everyone go to heaven? Like I had all these questions as to where he ended up. And then eventually that, came to me like, oh, okay, well, where am I going
Mhm.
after I die? And so, yeah.
So basically, what you unpacked for us was your faith journey of like, you know, some of the storms that you've gone through in your life, like divorce, losing your grandfather, and then you saw it was very that statement that you made was very interesting to me. I it was Jesus that I was attracted to in my friend. Wasn't
Yeah,
necessarily your friend, but you discovered later, oh, it's
right,
because they're following Jesus and I'm seeing Jesus in them, which
right.
is just a great reminder for me. Well, number one, do people see Jesus and how I respond
Yeah,
when things change around me?
yeah,
And two, I have an incredible opportunity. People are looking for hope, and the fact that you saw it through your friend,
yeah.
that's very cool. So Christian Challenge, that's a college. Is that a college ministry?
Yeah.
Okay,
There's also another one called Student Mobilization, or STUMO, and I went to
Stumo.
that with
Yeah,
a couple of friends too. Um, Kind of tried them all out there,
that's
but
that's awesome. And now what's probably happening is people are seeing Jesus in you. Every time,
oh,
every time we don't know what we're doing back in the control room, I see you calm, cool, and collected. I'm like, all right, that's what Jesus would be doing right there. He would just be, hey, don't worry about the space bar thing. It's not a big deal. Like, I still love you.
that's so true. And that's like, yeah, like I said, like even though you're behind those screens, and there's like some serving work to be done, like that's not something that God can't work through.
Yeah.
Um, and even then he like works even more through it. So
Oh, it's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I think there's going to be other people that will resonate with your story because I know some people don't like unpacking, hey, here's what happened to my parents, here
yeah,
was kind of my faith journey. It's a pretty personal thing, so the fact that they're hearing it from you and that's what you decided to share, um,
yeah,
there will be people that will totally resonate with that. So thank you for sharing that.
yeah, of course.
Okay, number three, to close out our interview, are you okay if I ask you what can we pray for you in the coming weeks or months, just as a creative arts community? How and Pleasant Valley, what can we be praying for you about?
Yeah, so number one, that people would see Jesus through me. But kind of relating back to my like story and testimony, um, like my mom out of that, and I'm sure it's because I had the college like experience, and somebody like directly, intentionally inviting me to church, and to explore more about who Jesus is. And but my mom has not had that same, like, I guess, opportunity or someone to reach out. And so after a while, it took me a long time, and like man, I like, if you could just see like the first times that I tried sharing the gospel with her, like I was so frustrated because it's not like she was like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna, go away from all my fear and anxiety and just randomly do that, because she's not somebody who does that. And like, I think we're a lot alike in we're a little bit skeptical of things. Like, is this really true? Like, this seems too good to be true. Let me, think about it for several years, And so, like, I guess I would just, ask that people would pray for me to like be able to share more, because recently I've had like some really good conversations, like deep spiritual conversations, even to the point where my mom started telling me, I hope that I end up in the same place that you do, after I'm gone. And I'm like, well, I do too. Like, and so, maybe that was a moment where I should say, hey, do you want to pray that prayer? Are you ready for that prayer? And but yeah, I don't know. Oh, so just over time, more and more opportunities to share with my mom,
Okay.
and then also the rest of my family, because I think through some of those conversations, we're all on kind of the same group chat on Facebook Messenger, and so sometimes I just type it out there, like, to whoever's saying something that happened to them during the day or at work or something. And so I guess just
That's
more,
awesome.
yeah,
That's
share
awesome.
that.
So those two things, so that people see Jesus in you,
Yep.
just, grocery store,
Yep.
picking up fuel at Quick Trip, um, when you're working with people on Zoom at Cerner. So we can pray that people see Jesus. And then number two, that you would just have some confidence in sharing Jesus with other people,
Yep.
and that those opportunities come along. We call those divine appointments. When those divine
Yes.
appointments come up, you seize them. So yeah, we can be praying for those two things.
Awesome.
Hey,
Yep. We
thanks for
really
th-
appreciate it.
yeah, thanks for being with us, and we really appreciate what you do. I know people don't see you because you're back in the control room, but we really appreciated having you on the team, and just know that we really value it. It takes quite a bit of time when you do decide to serve with lyrics. A lot of people don't know it takes about 7 hours of someone's time if you consider the rehearsal and then serving on the weekend. And being on a rotation is great because you're not here every week, but we love that you're on a rotation because we get to see you at least once a month. That's good.
For sure. I enjoy it. I enjoy serving it there so much.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Brian.
All right, thanks for joining us today for this interview, and stay tuned for some more interviews coming up in the future.